everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Healing Hour podcast. Today we have our wonderful guest, Miss Dionne.
Hello.
And if you don't mind tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Well, my name is Dionne Rosemond, and I am the CEO and founder of Rosemond Financial. Accounting is my passion, so that's like my main purpose in my business, but I also do personal finances where I help individuals with budgets and just learning how to manage their money, pretty similar to how a business would manage their money.
Right, awesome. So that's one thing that I feel like our audience and everybody can benefit from is learning how to balance those personal finances.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, telling us a little bit about some common mistakes that people have, and some tips as well, because I can definitely benefit from this, just making sure that my monthly expenses don't outweigh my monthly income, and when I can treat myself and when I cannot treat myself.
So I think one of the biggest, I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistakes, but one of the biggest oversight that most people have is to not have a plan or a budget. That's really a good starting place, because if you kind of just get your income, you have money coming in and you're just spending, you don't know, what's going on, where is it going, you're just, handing money out. Basically, it's like you're getting paid in front of a fan, like the old saying goes. Then you don't really have any control over your finances. You're not telling your money where to go. You're kind of asking yourself, where did my money go? That's a quote that I picked up recently. But
I like that.
you have no real direction, and then how can you have purpose? How can you really even know if you're splurging when you're not supposed to be splurging? So I think that's one of the first places that most people should start, is by actually sitting down and coming up with a budget, facing their finances head on. Without knowing it, a lot of people are afraid to actually sit down and look at the numbers and see what's really going on, because then you have to face some truths, right?
Right.
I'm overspending, or I may not be making enough money, or I'm not, using my money wisely. So I think that's one of the most important places to start, is by sitting down, coming up with a plan, and actually having a budget. With saying that, there are a lot of avenues that you can take to do that. You can kind of, do it on your own, get a template and fill that out, write things down, just, how much money do I have coming in? What are my expenses? And you can budget really and truly for anything, right?
Right.
Us ladies like to get our hair and our nails done, and, we need our lashes and our shoes and our purses. And there's nothing wrong with, buying those things, but we just want to make sure that we budget for them.
Make it make sense.
Yes, we might know, okay, hey, Fenty's coming out with a new line for Christmas, and I really want to buy that item. So how can I today start putting a little to the side, so that, when that big item purchase does come along, I'm not, buying it, and I'm not making that purchase without being prepared. I have a plan for how I can do that and have no guilt attached to it.
Ooh, yes. So I guess that's kind of what I'm going through right now. So, summer's coming up, and so my bougie girlfriends are it's a girls trip this summer. We're about to be on somebody's beach. So I've been doing my hair myself. I've been doing my hair myself, because I'm when I step back and I started looking at my finances, I'm how much am I paying these nice ladies to do my hair?
Yes.
Spending thousands on maintenance.
Yes.
And then I kind of was just okay, how can I scale this back so that I can allot more money into my vacation money, into my play money? Because the maintenance money and the play money, why am I looking good and I can't go where I want to go? That doesn't make any sense.
I think you touched on something that's super important. What you did was you essentially pivoted, right?
Right.
Life happens, priority change, things happen. And you may have, there are people who've been on a fixed budget for however long, but something comes up and then, they feel pressure. But you can relieve some of that pressure by simply pivoting, just saying to yourself, okay, what can I change? What can I do differently? Where can I move? I've heard it said, you rob Peter to pay Paul, but what can I switch around so that I'm actually, which is what you did. You said, okay, well, I'm going to stop allocating as much money to this, and I'm now going to change my focus and allocate money to that. I personally believe that, almost any income can be budgeted.
Right.
You can do a lot on a little.
With a little.
If you just, plan it out properly. Just take the proper steps to sit down and say, you may have to feel, it may burn a little bit because you might not be able to do all the things that you want to do right then in that moment. But, at least you can do it in a way that you don't have to feel a whole lot of guilt or the stress. Or the depression or those negative emotions that come with spending money.
Oh yeah, to this day, I'm still very confused about how my grandmother came to the States and she didn't speak English, so she couldn't get a very the highest paying job. She had to get a job with her skill set. So you already know so she had to clean hotels and things like that. And so once I started doing the math, and I'm on a maid salary, this lady literally put 6 kids through private school, high school, and some through college, and we weren't hungry.
Yeah.
And we have a house.
Yep.
But here I am in my mid-20s,
how did you do that, Grandma?
Right, brunch next week. And I don't even have any kids.
Well,
so I'm how did she do so much with just one loaf of bread? How was she able to split that up so everybody could eat?
I think one of the biggest things is consistency. I will say, coming from an immigrant family also, we know that they can be consistent. No means no. This is what we're doing. So me personally, I've had a budget template or a spreadsheet that I've worked off for at least the last 12 to 15 years. And at the end of the year, I roll it over, I start a new one, and I, continue to plan. When my finances change, I update it to match my finances. My expenses change. I cannot live without it. It's, that to me is consistency, and it makes a difference, because even though sometimes you start off in the beginning, it's a little shaky. You're like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I can't be this rigid. I can't be this strict with myself. Tarjay is calling my name. Brunch with my girls are calling my name. But you kind of you look at your button. Well, based on the way my bank account is set up, that's not going to happen this week. And you do that over time. You get more comfortable with it. You stick to it. You're consistent. It's challenging in the beginning, but I promise you, a couple of months in, you're like, why haven't I been doing this all my life? I can actually see where my money is going. I have more control over my finances. And, especially as us ladies, in the household, traditionally it was the man's job to take care of the money, but a lot of women are now stepping up, and they're the one that's managing the money in the household. So it's good for us to start having those practices for ourselves, so then when we add on more, we know how to allocate it efficiently. I wouldn't say properly, but efficiently.
Because I always said that, I always felt that maintaining money is a lot. It means a lot more than making money, because I feel like women nowadays, we're statistically we the breadwinners right now. We're the degree holders, we're the breadwinners at this point. But I also know a lot of mishandlers. So it's okay, I know people that aren't my grandmother and don't got 20 kids and can't feed themselves.
Much less.
And so that's whenever I started opening my eyes, and I'm okay, I need to save, and not just for like fun things, but for rainy days as well. And so one thing that I wanted to touch on too, so Miss Dionne had a great marketing class. I was in there taking notes. And in this marketing class, she spoke about financial fasting.
Yes.
And you brought about that point.
Yes.
So then, after that class, like I've heard of it before, but I've never had it broken down. But now that it was broken down, I've started to been able to say no because I want to try this thing out. And although it's not, like I'm not doing it for the long period, so I'm doing the financial fasting every other week and seeing how it works. So sometimes, like, I find myself having to tell my friends, like no brunch, girl. No, mama's got to fast.
I mean, think about it, right? Like, you know, if you want to lose weight, you'll fast, and that also takes what? Commitment. You have to be committed to that. So it's pretty much the same thing, you know. Like if you think of it as, you know, the slimming of your expenses, you know. I did not hear about it previously to talk to a girlfriend earlier this year, and she said I'm doing. Hers was long, like 3 months.
Yeah, girl.
I'm doing.
Yeah, girl, please. I need my mimosas.
I'm doing a 90-day spending fast, and I said, wow, that sounded way more challenging to me than if someone told me to do a food fast, which I love to eat. So so imagine just, you know, and it was just the thought of like not spending unnecessary money. Like we need money in order to, like, you know, to survive. I need to put gas in my car. I need to buy groceries, but it means buying groceries as opposed to eating out.
Right.
It means, like, you know, when I'm scrolling through Instagram, because they love to get me, and I see those really cute shoes. Ooh. I'm just gonna look at it, pick my size, put it in my cart, and then that's where it stays. You know, it means I'm not ramping up before I go on this fast, and I'm not ramping up after. You know, like I'm not doing more damage than or undoing the good that I did while being on this fast. If something came about during this fast that I chose not to spend money on or I said no to, I'm not going to go back and be like, well, I'll buy it next week, you know?
Yeah.
And just being committed to it. And it goes a long way. Because I was just talking to a girlfriend today, and she was supposed to go out over the weekend. She's like, no, we just stayed home, and we probably saved like $300. $300, that's minimal. You didn't even account for gas, you know, in that $300. Like going outside is expensive. But that's money that you can put in the savings account. You know, that's money that you can put towards a goal. You know, that's money that you can put in a slush fund.
Right.
So, you know, it's just making those little sacrifices, but having a plan behind it. That can make a huge difference when it comes to managing your money.
Definitely, because those Shein ads be whooping me left and right. Like every time I ignore one, I'm like, stay strong, and then they come out with a cuter item, and I'm like, damn.
I just let the cart build up to 100, and then I go clear out all the old stuff when they tell me I have too much, and then I go back and build it up to 100 again, and then the feeling, quite honestly, the feeling goes away.
It does.
When you see
the initial shock.
Yeah, when you see that cute item, and you're like, I have to have that today, and I just, you know, put the item in my cart, and then, you know, I move on because they're gonna send me another cute picture.
Exactly.
You know, maybe 3-4 weeks from now, if I really can't shake that in my spirit and I have now some extra money in my slush fund, then I can go ahead and take advantage. You know, I can treat myself. But, you know, sometimes if you take a step back, you might not be, you might realize that you have the exact same thing in your closet.
Right. Well, that's the thing with fast fashion, though. I feel like nothing's gonna break the bank more than fast fashion, because we see one thing and then we see everybody wearing it, and it's like, I gotta get it before it runs out of style.
Yes.
And so another thing that I've been implementing with my finances is no more trendy clothes. Stables only. Because like I'll spend like a little more on, like, you know, a pair of pants that I can do all these things with this one pair of pants.
Yeah.
And the great thing is you get to wash them. So it's not like, you're wearing the same pants. Like, yeah, girl, wash them. So it's like this one thing can go with 10 outfits instead of buying 10 outfits.
But that's, to me, that kind of comes from like culture, right?
Culture.
I am from a Caribbean family,
Yep.
and you know, we don't repeat outfits. That's
Right.
just not a thing. If you have a new event, you have to have a new outfit.
Yep.
And it's not just you. It's you, the daddy, the babies, the dog even got to be fresh for this new event. But, you know, why can't we just buy a staple piece and repeat that item, you know?
Right.
Like, what's so, like, that's like a society strain that we have
Yeah.
put on ourselves, and now we have to feel financial pressure because we can't keep up with the Joneses, you know. And people say it all the time, don't try to keep up with the Joneses, but sometimes it's a little bit more easier said than done. But you can still kind of keep up with the Joneses a little bit. Just put a plan behind it.
Just put a plan behind it.
Put a plan behind it. Get a budget, you know, and say, hey, maybe once a month I'll treat myself to this one nice item.
Right.
You know, and now you've planned for it. So you don't have to feel this like, I'm spending money that I should not be spending, or I should be doing other things. Because then you can stop yourself and check your budget and say, okay, I did buy this, but I also fulfilled my saving goal for this month, you know?
Exactly. And I think that would help a lot. And also during the finance seminar. What do you call it? Like a class, a workshop?
It was like a workshop.
workshop that Miss Dionne did. I kind of realized my own guilt with spending because, like, all brunch aside, I'm a really frugal person. All brunch aside, like, if you look at my credit card statements, that's the only place where I'm lacking is like food. Drinks with the girls. And so, but I'm so stingy about what I buy. Like, I have like this this unreasonable guilt attached to spending money, and I think that also comes from a family where we had to make do with what we had. So it's like, whenever I do get myself something nice, like to this day, like, I've never bought myself designer. Like, anything designer I have, I buy it. Thank you to who did buy it. But I didn't buy it because
you're looking at it like, I just can't do it.
I can't do it. The money will be in my bank account, and I just cannot drag myself to spend this much money. And so it's been a gift and a curse at the same time, because at the same time, you know, like, I'm still living on money from like years ago because I'm like cheap. But also it gives me some type of anxiety around money. And also, like, when it comes to manifesting, I've had to I need to let go of that worry and those bad emotions in order to get an even bigger flow of money. Because if I'm holding this like little dollar and gripping it, it's like I'm not opening my hands to the more money that can flow into me because I don't want to spend. So, like, what's your advice for people like me who feel guilty for treating themselves?
I would say, I mean, again, it comes back to having your plan, and then you know, you can look at that and say, okay, I want to spend this money, and I'm not sure, but let me look at what I've done. You know,
right?
Are my savings goals met? Like, is my income goal met? Like, do I have the money? Because I think a lot of people don't really identify as much that there's those negative feelings about money too, right? I have the money, but I still feel bad when I spend it. You know, and you kind of just have to, like, get comfortable with yourself and understanding that I earned this.
Right.
I worked for this. I deserve to treat myself if I can afford this. Once you check your bank account and all of your goals are met, and you say, okay, this is now extra. I've saved up for this, and I can do this. Then, you know, that helps to kind of take a little bit of that pressure off. But it's really a mindset thing, all of it, as it pertains to how you approach your finances. It's a mindset. You know, some people are a lot more organized in that, you know, they can do it in their brain and they can be very strict and strategic about it. And some people are just like, oh, $200 for that? No problem. You know, they don't attach the same value to money that other people do, you know. So to me, it's kind of just, you know, you have to just take some time and sit with yourself and, you know, like, just do a little bit of a mindset shift if you have it
Right.
and you want it and you have set yourself up for it, then, ain't no shame in getting it.
Right? It's just so like, oh, you already know, like your family's from the islands too, so it's just like in the back of my head.
Yes.
If I think of something, I'm looking at a $2,000 purse, and it's just like,
I can't fathom.
you did what? You did what for $2,000?
Yeah.
You spent your rent on a bag?
Yeah.
So I just naturally don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of like live by like, I mean, those who know me know like how I feel about Jay-Z. So I always think of this quote that he said when he was like, if you can't buy it 3 times, you can't afford it. So I'm always in my head like, can I buy this 3 times? And so I will go to Target and get me a little book bag, like a little pocketbook, because I can spend $25 3 times. But I'm not about to go to Louis Vuitton. That's for them to spend 3 times.
But if you plan for
Right.
it, then, you might not be able to plan for it 3 times. But if you
Right.
plan for it, you put that money to the side, you were diligent, you were consistent, then, you literally earned it. You did what they would tell you to do when you were a kid. If you want something, save up for it.
Exactly.
And that's essentially what you did. So, again, it goes back to mindset. You just have to condition your mind to understand that I checked all of the boxes. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and now I want to do this thing. Yes, it costs 1 month's rent, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to afford next month's rent once I pay for this. See, now that's when you should be a little concerned.
So that's the problem with me, is like the healthy relationship.
Yes.
And I feel like it's so important for us to develop a healthy relationship with money, because I feel like sometimes like being too cheap, it's just as bad as being too frivolous.
Yes.
And like I've met people like that made boatloads of money, and the way they hold on to them dollars, like they'll never get another dollar again.
Yeah.
And so it's like life has afforded you all these options. Like you can go to this country, you can do this. You know what I'm saying? But you're too afraid to spend what you have, and so your quality of life is like, okay, why are you working so hard?
Yeah.
So
I think if money is meant to be enjoyed,
right,
we should enjoy it responsibly.
responsibly. Don't get crazy.
That does not mean that you just go blow next month's rent on whatever that thing is.
In the name of self-care.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to wherever, to the Maldives, so I'm just gonna do it. No,
right.
If that's what you want, you set up a plan, and we all have different priorities in life. What's important to you may not be as important to me, and vice versa. So you figure out what those things are, and you use your money to help you do that. You know what I mean? And society puts a lot of stress and strains on us, and there's all of these labels. At this age you should be doing this thing, at this age you should have this thing, but that may not be important to me. I may value a nice car more than I value owning a home. And that's me as an individual. That's the thing that I want to use my money that I earned to enjoy. So it's kind of just, you gotta just get comfortable with your relationship with money, and then with like who you are as an individual, and just go after the things that you want with a proper plan.
Right. And I think that's the key, is like planning.
Yes, I will always come back to that. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, and
that's a good one.
It's tried and true. Like if I want anything, or if I'm like during COVID time, a lot of people went from a 2-income household to a 1-income household. What do you do? How do I adjust? But you sit down and you come up with a solid plan for, all right, do some evaluating. What can I cut back on?
Right.
We just joked a while ago, but some people have like subscriptions. I paid for Planet Fitness for about 2 years and went to the gym maybe 3 times.
You just reminded me, I need to cancel that.
It's
been years.
It just sits there. It's just, and then you don't. I never remember it until that annual fee came out. Because when it's $10 a month, it's like, oh, that's nothing. But $10 a month, that's $120 for the year. You know what I mean? Like when you look at it like that, and then you multiply that by how many years you've let it run on, then you're kind of like, I could have did something with that money, you know. When that annual fee hits, and you're like, what is this $50 to $100 charge, you know? And then you're kind of like, all right, take some time and go through your bank statement, your credit card statement, and see what you're spending money on. Does it still make sense to have this thing? Can I change this subscription?
Right.
You know, what can I change? You know, a penny saved is a penny earned, you know. Where else can I put it? You know what I mean? So you can do more sensible things with your money. You know, in the beginning, it's going to suck a little bit because, you know, setting anything up, it's a little bit challenging.
Right.
But once you, again, stay consistent and you know, continue to come back to what I mentioned when we met the last time was a tip that I use is prior to the money coming in, I check my budget to see what I need to do once the money's there, what needs to be paid, and, you know, how much slush money do I have. And then once the money comes in, I go back and I check my bank account to make sure that everything was paid.
Yeah.
And everything that I planned to pay came out is already covered, because I can have a budget. I can know that I need to pay this $100 bill. I can assume that the $100 bill was paid, and I can go blindly just swipe my card, but it didn't. Now that bill comes out, I wasn't prepared for it, now my account is overdrawn.
Right.
You know, so you have to do the checks and the balances, and you have to, it's a consistent, you know, checking my bank account, checking my budget, I check it constantly. I'm always checking just to see where I need to be, what I have, what I need to do, so I can stay on top of things.
Definitely. I feel like my problem sometimes is, I mean, I guess it's not a problem because I'm not a frivolous spender, but sometimes, like, I'll go out of my way to, like, ignore my bank statement because I feel like sometimes it gives me anxiety, like dang, girl,
Yeah.
slow down.
Yeah.
So I feel like then it kind of puts me in panic mode when in reality I'm like, okay, like, I'm actually okay, like, I'm not drowning.
Yeah.
But just seeing the numbers being taken out, I'm like, where are y'all going?
But, you know, if you know what I always, and I live for my slush fund money. Like,
right.
I want to know how much extra I have. I think that's what actually got me to start budgeting in the first place, is because I want to know how much money I have left over to do whatever I want to do after I get paid. So, you know, once you kind of know what your slush fund money is, I mean, I get it because nobody wants to see it depleting.
Right.
But, you know, then you can also go back to your budget and say, what do I need to pivot? What do I need to reposition? All right, I spent a little too much this week. You know, what do I need to cut back on next week? So I don't have to have anxiety when I check my bank account because I see that bounce back. You know, it's kind of just just being on top of checking it. I mean, you got to face it head on.
All right. You got to open your eyes, but it's kind of just, yeah.
Sometimes you also have to put yourself in a space where you're like, you know, I'm going to Target and I'm taking this $100 in cash with me.
Ooh,
all my credit cards, my bank cards, all of that stuff is staying in the car, at home, wherever it needs to be. And I can only spend this $100.
Now tell us a little bit more about ways that we can, I guess, like, keep track.
Yes.
Like, what are, like, the quick ways that the average person like me who will spend something and then forget about it? Like, what's some ways that we can track our spending? And not only that, but when is it okay to, like, get our little slush on?
So I know a few folks that actually use the Mint app. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but Mint is great because you can pull all of everything that you use, that you tender. You can actually have that all linked to Mint, so you can find all of your spending in one place, and you can track it for years and years and years and years. And you know, that's a good tool that you can use. And they actually also help you to analyze your spending, to see, you know, how much you're spending on food, how much you're spending on groceries, and it can also help you come up with a budget based on your spending. I logged into my bank the other day, and they were offering a service where, you know, they help you analyze your spending as well, and they help you come up with a budget. So those are like quick, readily available, you know, tools that you can use, or apps that, you know, we're all into apps these days that you can use. And there are other apps out there that help you analyze your spending, help you find ways to save money, you know, if you kind of don't want to do it on your own.
Is there like a rule of thumb? Because I know like some people have like an 80-20, like maybe 70-30. Is there like a general like how much you should be putting away versus how much?
I personally don't follow a rule of thumb, only because I feel that, you know, all our paths are different, you know what I mean? And we all, have different incomes, and we have different expenses.
True.
So to me, an 80-20 rule is so restrictive in that, like, what if I can't do 20? You know, what if I can really only do 10? What if I can really only do 5? So my rule really is do what you can. You know, if my mom always told me, save money when you have money to save. You know, sometimes you may be in a season where your income can really only cover your expenses, you know, and what are you going to do then? Are you going to stress yourself out to try to, you know, like save this extra that you don't have, you know? So, but if you're being responsible about your money, you'll know these things about your finances, and then you'll know what you can and cannot do. I personally feel it's subjective. It's up to the individual what they are able to do. So I don't follow like the 80-20 rule or any rules that other people may follow. That's me personally.
I've always wondered that. Like, I've heard that a lot. Like, oh, put a certain... I've never, like, sat there and calculated. I've always kind of just been the person, like, okay, now that the bills are out the way, now it's time to, like, get some money. Like, I usually, like, I like to, like, take it out in cash and put it in a whole different bank.
Yeah.
Put it in a whole different bank, and, yeah, I don't know how much I take. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not tempted to touch it.
Yes. So that's one thing that I do as well, is I'll split the money up. So I have my regular checking account, and I'll have a savings account that's linked to in that same bank account. So what I'll do is I use my checking account, you know, for regular everyday stuff, my savings account for, like, you know, my brunchy brunch money, and then my real savings account is somewhere else where it's not as easily accessible. So for many years I had a credit union account, and they sent me the debit card, and I never activated it. So in order for me to get money out of that account, I would have to, like, do all types of stuff. I would have to jump through hoops to get that money. So that ended up being like my savings account, my true emergency fund savings account. So, you know, but you know, also too, you ask, when can you slush out? Okay, now I have this secondary savings account that's attached to my checking account. When that, maybe you can tell yourself when that hits a certain amount, you know, all right, I can spend, if it gets to 1,000, I can spend 200. Then I build that back up to 1,000, then I can spend another 200. So you have some easily accessible rainy day funds if you need to do something quick. And you also have your major savings account where if you're saving for a big goal, like I want to buy a house one day, or, you know, I want to invest this money into whatever, you know, your retirement accounts at work are also a great way to save, because, you know, once you're covering all of your other wants and needs, is essentially about saving for when you're no longer able to have like a steady income coming in, right? So that's still a form of savings, you know. That's something that you're setting and forgetting, you know. So I think what you're doing is great in pulling it out, putting it in a separate bank account, stashing it away, but then also having, because not everyone can follow these like super strict guidelines, and sometimes if it's too stringent, you're liable to not to stick. It's just like a diet where they tell you don't do these extreme diets, because then you probably won't stick to it, you know. And
it's definitely like going back to like my grandma's situation, like she had to save that money. There was no like if and buts. Like it was like save this money or like face financial ruin and have your kids homeless. So for like, I feel like young professionals like myself, and like even like my older homegirls with no kids, it's like, how do we have like the self-control to know when we need to budget whenever we don't have mouths to feed and there's no pressure on us to really save money?
that's again, that to me kind of comes back to your mindset. You think to yourself, what do I want my future to look like? Because we're not going to be this young and free forever.
Yeah,
so,
wrong.
how am I setting myself up for the next? Sometimes we get lost in that, invincible. We think we're invincible.
I'll make it back.
Yeah.
I'll make a check next week.
Yeah.
That COVID stopped my whole mentality about I'm going to pay myself back next week.
Yeah. No.
Once we were all like,
I don't know what's gonna happen next.
COVID showed us there's no job that's safe. There's nobody's safe.
Yeah.
You have to have that rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I had that mindset along. It's I don't have any kids. I don't have to
but
if something
when
happens,
should they come? They expensive.
Now I'm like, yeah, no. In case they come, they need to have their own diaper fund. But
yes.
As a young woman with no responsibility, it's so easy to mess it up. And luckily I had a guilt surrounding money. So but not everybody has that guilt that I shouldn't be spending this. And I think that comes from background as well, coming from poor countries. It's
but it's so easy to get caught up in the lights, in the keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
This is what everybody's doing, If everybody's doing it, maybe I should be doing it too,
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to, again, condition yourself for different, what do I want for my next, how do I position myself if something were to ever happen to this income stream that I have coming in? You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's unfortunate, but nothing's forever.
Right.
A lot of things that we think are permanent are very temporary.
Very temporary.
It's just kind of how am I going to change my thinking to accommodate this thing? And it's just like any other hard thing that you have to do in life. How am I going to stick to it? How am I going to be committed to it? How am I going to make sure that I follow through?
And personally, I think it's just, like I said previously, is rebuilding my relationship with money. Even whenever it's not a lack of money or a surplus even, but it's just how do I change my feelings about money? How do I use money? How can I change my feelings about how I should use my money? And then how am I making my money work for me? I think is all the things that I have to be mindful with when I'm rebuilding from a poverty mindset. Because we both know that once you have a poverty mindset, it's going to be so hard to make money because you're manifesting little bit, short change. You're not thinking at the big picture, so it's you're not able to live to your full financial potential if you keep thinking I'm broke.
Yeah. You mentioned that the last time that we met, and that actually stuck with me. And I actually realized it in my own finances, and I really hold it to be true. When I am trying so hard to be so stringent on this, I don't got it budget. I don't got it, and I continue to not have it. But the minute I'm okay, just open up, and then it just starts to roll, and you're okay, I can get behind this. I can't get behind that.
Exactly.
But that also comes from sitting with your money, spending time with your money, getting comfortable with your money. Checking that bank statement and that credit card statement. That's how
avoid her like the plague.
You can't run away from it. You know what I mean?
Every Monday it's paid.
Just spend some time with it, and then that relationship will start to change. It will become a more positive relationship as to ignoring it, where it's just we have a toxic relationship, so I'm just not going to deal with you right now.
No, it's going to come back one way or another.
It is.
So, yes, but I definitely thank you so much for coming on our show. And this is the part where I want you to plug in all your business ventures. Shower us with
first of all,
everything Dionne right now. What are you doing? How can we follow you? Any websites? Just let us know.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. I can talk about this stuff all day long. because, you know, I love helping people, you know. So business ventures, as I mentioned, I'm the CEO of Rosemond Financial. You can find me on Instagram at Rosemond Financial, and my website is www.rosemondfinancial.com. Aside from that, I also have another business venture called Married Working Mamas. That is, you know, kind of like my passion project. I do that with my business partner, a very close friend of mine, and that's more of a, you know, it's more of a social venture. We actually, our main platform, or our main purpose, is to celebrate and highlight women for all that we do. Because it is a lot. Like, you know, like, sometimes just getting the kids to school on time in the morning was an accomplishment. Waking up on time to make that. Waking up and feeling like a person is that should be celebrated too. You know, we don't always have it there. We're not always feeling all together. You know, it sometimes takes a lot of effort, you know. So that's what we do. We like to try to put together some fun events, you know, to get the ladies together, or to get the couples together, get the families together. So, you know, we can just continue to highlight and celebrate and lift up each other. And you can find that on Instagram at Married Working is WORKIN, there's no G, Mamas. And we also have a website, www.marriedworkingmamas.com.
I think that's so important, because I feel like we see our moms, like, especially those of us with, like, single moms.
Yes.
Like, we see them as, like as an adult, I kind of had to see my mom as a person and not just a mom that's supposed to be perfect, this robot that doesn't miss a beat, that doesn't have her own emotions, life, ecosystem going on. I'm like, no, like, your only obligation is to tend to your child.
Yeah, no.
So as an adult, I'm like, oh, now that I'm your age, whenever I was like a preteen, my mom was my age, I'm like, oh, yeah. So you deserve all that. You deserve all your flowers, because I know this as an individual, it's not easy getting up every day, let alone having a little person looking up to me, watching my every move.
Yeah, you have to manage.
Shout out to Mom. Shout out to Lucy.
Yeah. You have to manage yourself. You have to manage these kids. You have to manage this house. And then if you're working, you have to manage your work life. It's just a lot to juggle. It can sometimes be super overwhelming. So, you know, we're happy to just be a community, or we're trying to build a community where we can come together and just say, girl, this is hard.
Right.
You know, it's hard. What do you do? How do you deal with X, Y, and Z? And this is how I deal with X, Y, and Z, you know. So I truly get a lot of joy from marriage, because it's a little bit different from my day job. So, you know.
Right. And I feel like we need that outlet. Like, we need women supporting women.
Yes.
So thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I hope y'all wrote down all the stuff that Miss Dionne got going on. Rewind it, play it back, follow me.
Follow me on social media. Again, it's Rosemond Financial and Married Working Mamas.
Period. And thank you so much. That's today's episode of The Healing Hour.